Good morning. It's morning this time. Um, I want to pretend to be an intellectual for a moment. I'm not necessarily a learned man. I have a basic education. I'm a high school dropout. I can understand things. I'm not a complete idiot. Not something of a genius either. And the fall of the Roman Empire is not necessarily one of my favorite topics. I don't dislike the fall. I just am more. I'm sorry, the fall of the Roman Republic is not one of my favorite topics. I prefer the fall of the empire and into the Republic than the fall of the Republic into the Holy Roman Empire and to what it is today. I guess. I guess that wouldn't technically be the Holy Roman Empire, would it? I don't know. I digress. The 400 and whatever 476 BC, I'm sorry, AD fall of Rome isn't necessarily my favorite part of the fall of Rome because I much enjoy the politics of the fall of the Roman Republic, takeover of Caesar, the betrayal of Caesar. I find it reads almost like a story. When I listen to it, it is something that is like this could be a novel that someone's reading. This could be so many more things than an actual historical event, and it really grabs my interest. Whereas the fall of Rome in 476 AD, that is more of a fact based historical. These are the things that led to the fall of Rome. So I'm not entirely learned on this. This isn't something I'm necessarily qualified to talk about. Rome in general isn't something I'm qualified to talk about. I do enjoy history, I dabble in historical events. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at some of the reasons Rome fell and some of the things that are very similar to what's going on in the United States today. Now, this this isn't something that just sparked out of pure oh I'm smart. I saw a an unsubscribed podcast episode where they made this argument. I didn't watch it yet. It's on my to do list, but I saw this and I thought, yeah, I could see that. And then I started looking into it a little bit, and I was like, yeah, I could see that. And so I wanted to, before listening to this podcast, I wanted to talk about my ideas on this. The where's, the what's similar, what's different, and do I think we're actually going to collapse as a nation? Which, maybe. My answer is maybe. And so I have just the generic Cliff Notes version from the Brave AI when I asked it what caused the fall of Rome. And it tells me, which I knew of the barbarian invasions, it tells me of the economy collapsing, which is something I knew of. And really, I brought this up just as kind of like something to reference so that I can actually pull it up and show you the reference here. Um, and, it shows economic collapse, it shows political instability, it shows military overextension. Now, the only thing I don't think we have, which I'm not entirely sure yet, this is a possibility, is the division of the empire, which we could potentially have. A lot of people are considered left or right. A lot of people are considered Republican or Democrat. And I see a lot of Republicans moving to redder states and a lot of Democrats moving to bluer states. But what I want to get to, and one thing that was left out was just the sexual immorality of society. Society became obscenely perverted. And that's something we'll get into in a minute with the Gooner epidemic and the OnlyFans. And that's something we'll get into in a second. Society became extremely perverted. And I want to talk about, and I'm just going to go point by point the um, off of the list that the Clanker came up with here. So it brings up the barbarian invasions. Germanic tribes entered into the borders of Rome, and then the Visigoths sacked the city of Rome, and the Vandals then sacked Rome after that, which is where the saying "to vandalize" comes from. So Rome was sacked by the Visigoths and the Vandals. We haven't gotten there yet, but prior to that, the Germanic tribes that entered into the empire could be argued to be a very similar thing to what's happening with our southern border here. We have millions of people that have come into our southern border that we can't account for, much like the Germanic people that came into Rome that led to the sacking of Rome by the Visigoths and the Vandals. Picture, if you will, our southern border's wide open. All kinds of people come across the border. And then a group of Russians and Chinese then attack the U.S. Capitol. They then sack the Capitol. It's not parallel lines, but you're kind of on the same course. It's a very similar course. And there's definitely some parallels there, even though the lines aren't exact. You know, one might have a little S curve in it. One might have a little swoop that goes around and comes back. But we are on very similar paths. It's something that is concerning. It's something that we need to get a hold of. And some of these things I have source material for. I have sources to show, and some of these are just, we know these things. So the next thing it talks about is economic collapse. It says economic collapse, consistent warfare, oppressive taxation, and inflation drained the treasury. We're there. We are there. Now, the constant warfare thing, okay, maybe kind of a little bit. We could touch on it. We're not quite there yet. We're very close. Okay, it's like when you're driving down the highway and the speed limit's 55 and you're doing 62, and it's like probably not going to get pulled over, but like you could get pulled over. You're probably good. That's kind of where we're at with the constant warfare thing. So far, most of the warfare we've seen under Trump, at least, has been quick, hit and run, get the job done, and get out of there. It has not been heavy-duty, long-term warfare. The worst we've had is right now with the Iran situation. That's the worst we've had thus far. And we're working on peace agreements on that, so we're willing to say that, okay, that was just a couple weeks. Maybe there's something there. Oppressive taxation. Most Americans pay nearly 50% in taxes. When you factor for the tax on your income at the federal level, the state level, the tax on everything you purchase, the tax on everything you sell, when you start to factor in the taxes that we actually pay, it is oppressive. The tax on every gallon of gas, the tax is obscene. The amount we pay, it is through the roof. It makes you want to start a revolution when you realize that we were taxed on paper and they were like, no, fuck you, it's war. And now we're taxed on everything you buy. To the point where people come from other countries and they don't understand why the shelf said that we'll use this later, right? The shelf says this lighter is $15. They get to the register and it's $17. And they're like, why is it $17? It says $15. People from other countries don't understand why we pay taxes on things that we purchase, or why it says one price and then we pay another, because we don't include the price on we don't include the tax on the item. when we put the price tag up. It's this plus tax. You have to figure out the difference. Makes no sense. It's obscene the amount of taxes we pay. Inflation and a deflated treasury or a drained treasury. Yeah, we're there. We have inflation through the roof. We have a drained treasury. We have $37 billion in debt. I think it is 36 billion, something like that. Or I'm sorry, 36 trillion, something like that. I don't know that it matters once you get into the trillions, but we have so much national debt. Okay, yeah, we have a treasury, but do we really? Because if everyone came knocking, no, we don't. Just for argument's sake, say we have 100 billion in the treasury. Just for argument's sake, just being playing games, being a silly goose here. Fuck it. Let's say we have 1 trillion in the treasury. We're just being a silly goose here, just playing with numbers. We owe 36 trillion, I think it is, and everyone we owe a debt to comes knocking at once. We've only got $1 trillion. We can't pay everybody. We don't have a treasury. We don't have a backup plan for this money, right? The money doesn't exist. Something I've been saying as I've been going through my bankruptcy. My bankruptcy attorney is like, "Well, you should have this much money left over every month." And I told her, "Yeah, I know. That's why I'm here. Is I should have money, and I don't have money, so I need to file bankruptcy." And she did not understand that. Like, what do you mean you don't have money? Well, I mean, like 2 weeks ago, I worked like 10 hours. I don't have any money. I'm not making any money for weeks on end, and then I'll get a good paycheck that's, it's a decent paycheck for a couple weeks in a row. And when you look at 3 good paychecks and 1 bad paycheck, you go, I don't understand why you don't have money. Yeah, go back another 2 weeks and look at those paychecks before that. I digress. The point is the same. When people that I owe debts to come looking for money, and I tell them there is no money to give you. Any money I have spent to live. It's the same situation as Rome had when the inflation went crazy and their treasury dried up. It's the same situation the U.S. would go through if everybody all of a sudden said, "Hey, you owe us money." They wouldn't have the money to give. So, as far as the economic collapse, we're close. We are very close. The only thing that has kept it from happening really is the good graces of all our debtors not coming and knocking on the door at once. The next one is something that I have some sources for. And after that, we'll get into the perversion of the Western world. So the next cliff note here I'll pull it up again so that you guys can see it again if you guys didn't catch a glimpse of it. So we've gone through the barbarian invasions or our southern border. We've gone through the economic collapse or our economic failures. So here's where we're at now. Political instability and corruption. The empire suffered frequent civil wars and a lack of clear succession, with over 20 emperors ruling in 75 years during the crisis of the 3rd century. Okay, so we have a different system, obviously. We pick a guy, and that guy stays for 4 years, and then we decide, do you get another, or are we picking someone else? In most cases. Now, this case is slightly different because Trump did 4, Biden did 4, Trump did 4 again, so we can't pick Trump again, right? Little different situation here. We're not necessarily whacking guys and saying, okay, you're in charge now. Well, yeah, we don't like you. You're dead. All right, you're in charge now. We can't necessarily do that. I mean, it could happen in theory. I wouldn't recommend you try. Probably not going to end well for you. But yeah, it could happen. That's why we have a vice president. That's why we have a speaker of the House. That's why we have a line of succession behind the president. If something were to happen, if there were a big attack that took out the president, the vice president, and the speaker, there's a guy underneath. And it continues down all the way to the fucking mailman. Yes, the guy that delivers your packages is in line to be president. He's way down there. But yes, that guy could be president. If some major horrible event happened, yeah, that dude's in line. I mean, they would have to go through tons of, I mean, hundreds, probably thousands of people before it got to that. So don't think, like Trump's going to shit his pants and your mailman's going to take over. But I digress. So we do have the possibility for a situation like this, but it's increasingly unlikely with our system of government. So instead, what do we suffer from? What are our problems here? Well, I'm not going to play the video. I'm just going to show the headline. And when I show this headline here, you'll be like, oh, here we have from Tim Pool. Democrats cover up election autopsy, fearing it will end the party. And then he has this NBC News article pulled up that says Democrats want the full 2024 election autopsy released, no matter the findings. DNC Chair Ken Martin told party officials he planned to release some of the results, sources said, but more than a dozen Democrats said they want to see the full scope of the problems. They want to know what happened, why did we lose? Because, in my opinion, they had some shenanigans that should have netted them the win. We have tons of political corruption. My brother is a construction worker, and I understand this is not able to be backed. This is just hearsay. My brother's a construction worker, right? My brother, he builds roads, he builds roundabouts, all kinds of stuff, drainage, sidewalks, all kinds of infrastructure. What his crew does most of the time. Usually he's a road crew. He's not like building buildings. He's not building houses. Most of the time he's doing road stuff. And the waste and fraud that happens that he has told me about. And no, it's not necessarily always fraud, but things like, well, the state cut us a check for $1 million to build this roundabout. So we don't care how much shit costs. We just buy whatever. They don't shop around for a better price. They just buy whatever. If they need gravel, they just buy gravel. They don't care what it costs. They don't shop around for a better price. They just buy it. They don't care. If they need a hammer, they don't go buy the cheap hammer at Harbor Freight. They'll go buy $100 hammer because I don't care. It's not my money. The amount of money that gets wasted on these crews, and it's not necessarily my brother's crew that's doing this. I'm sure they have. My brother doesn't buy crazy expensive shit if he has to go out. He buys the middle of the road stuff. He's not going to buy the Harbor Freight hammer because the Harbor Freight hammer is probably not going to hold up as good as a Milwaukee hammer. I don't even know if Milwaukee makes hammers. I'm just using a brand. But he's also not going to go buy a $300 or $400 hammer. He'll buy the hammer that costs $50 over the hammer that costs $12 because the $50 hammer is probably going to last a lot longer. He's not going to go because at the end of the day, he figures I'll have to answer for why did I spend $200 on this hammer instead of $50. I'm not going to have to answer for $50 or $60. I needed a hammer. If I buy a $12 hammer, they're going to be like, what the fuck? Why did you buy a $12 hammer? That thing's going to be junk in 15 minutes. To be fair, I've bought some $12 hammers that lasted a long time, and I still use some of them today. So, shout out Harbor Freight. That being said, I'm not building roads, breaking concrete, and blacktop up all day with them. I'm fucking banging on car parts from time to time. Little different use case there. I digress. The political corruption we have is one thing. The corruption and especially the financial corruption we have with things like construction crews, with things like, oh, well, it's state money. I don't care. And then we look at Biden. Well, let's call it what it was. Biden was removed from the race and Harris was put in. Harris was told, you're going to run for president now. Joe can't do it. And Harris was able to pull from the pile of cash that Biden had acquired. Harris shouldn't have had access to that money. money for the Biden campaign. That's not legal. You're not allowed to do that. But they did it. Frequent civil wars is something that's cited. How often do you hear, well, we're on the brink of civil war. Here is civil war. We're coming to civil war. It's finally happening. Civil war. You hear it all the time. Everyone thinks we're in a civil war. It's just hasn't gotten hot yet. Charlie Kirk was assassinated for speaking. Okay, there's a civil war. ICE agents have been shot at for enforcing the law. There's a civil war. Okay, there is a divide in this country. Democrat politicians have directly called for breaking the law. They have directly called for disobeying ICE. They have instructed military members to disobey orders given to them by their higher ups if they think that they came from Donald Trump. They told National Guard members not to show up when Trump said we need National Guard here. They told Marines not to show up when Trump said the Marines are going to, was it Los Angeles, I think? Something like that. When the Marines were deployed to California to help ICE agents, Democrat politicians said, yeah, don't do that. You don't have to do that. Yes, you do. That's literally how this works. So are we in a civil war? Kinda, yeah. Do we have political instability and corruption? Yeah, I mean, look at the Republican Party right now. It's in shambles. Look at the Democrat Party right now. It's falling apart. Nobody knows what's going on with either party. Now I want to stop for a second, and I want to talk about something that's not listed. And I want to talk about the degeneracy, the sexual degeneracy that has come in the past few years. And for this, I have a clip that I want to play. This might be very gruesome and offensive. So if you have children, I would get them out of the room right now. And it's not often that I say things are gruesome and too far because I'm a believer of children should hear things. Not this time. This is not something children should listen to. So I'm putting that out there, and I'll give you a minute to get your kiddos out of the room. This is an abhorrent clip that I have heard time and time again. It's something that I didn't even know happened until I was watching an episode of Timcast IRL, and Tim Pool brought this up. So what we have is a clip of Jazz Jennings' mother. How do I put this delicately? Threatening to assault the son that she decided should be genitally mutilated and turned into a girl. I'll say this. I harbor no resentment towards Jazz Jennings. Jazz Jennings' mother, however, that woman belongs in prison. And after you see this clip, I think you'll agree with me. So this is a clip of Jazz Jennings threatening to physically violate her daughter. I'm going to play it now. So if you've got little ones in the room, earmuffs, whatever, boot them out. Last chance. Here we go. Okay, did you hear that? She took the dilator and said, you put it in your vagina or I will. This woman is a psychopath. This woman belongs in prison. This woman has no right to tell somebody, I made you perform a surgery that you had no way to consent to, that you had no way to say that this is what you want. Because I believe Jazz Jennings was transitioned at like 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old. No understanding of what this meant, no understanding of what this was, no way to consent to this. Because how the fuck do you? And this woman says, if you don't take this dilator and put it in your vagina, I will. I will forcibly insert a foreign object into your body. That is unfucking hinged. That woman belongs in fucking prison. She should rot for the things she did to this young boy. And no, I don't say that to be disparaging to Jazz Jennings. I don't know what Jazz identifies as now. I don't really care. The point is, this was a young boy. He was born a boy. This psycho woman decided that she wants a daughter. She was going to have a daughter. And she's going to turn her son into a daughter. People like this vote. People like this, their vote counts just as much as yours or mine. This woman is a psycho. She's unhinged. And the left will grab a clip of this and say, look at this unhinged MAGA maniac saying that trans people don't exist. We have a huge, disproportionate sexual immorality in this country. Here I have an article I wanted to read from also. This is disgusting as well. This is from the Human Rights Campaign. Transgender children and youth understanding the basics. There are no basics. It's important to make distinctions between instances where kids being kids and they're asserting things about themselves that are critical to their identity and development, as is the case with gender identity and expression. Children are not born knowing what it means to be a boy or a girl. They learn it from their parents, older children, and others around them. This learning process begins early. As soon as a doctor or healthcare provider declares, based on observing the newborn's external sex organs, it's a boy or a girl, the world around that child begins to teach it these lessons, whether it's sorting of blue clothes and pink clothes, girl toys and boy toys, or telling the girls they're pretty and the boys they're strong. And then it skips down here. But gender does not simply exist in these binary terms. Gender is more of a spectrum, with individuals expressing and identifying varying degrees of both masculinity and femininity. Transgender people identify along the spectrum, but also identify as a gender that is different than the one they were assigned at birth. Look at this bullshit, okay? I can't stand to see these things. These things piss me off. This is a load of crap being sold to our young children, telling them, you can be whatever you want. You don't have to be a boy if you don't feel like being a boy. You don't have to be a girl if you don't feel like being a girl. You can be a watermelon today. Nobody cares. It's okay. You are perfect the way you are. And I am perfectly fine with telling children, you're perfect the way you are. Young girls should be told, yes, you're beautiful. Young boys should be told, yes, you're a handsome young man. You're a strong young man. It is your job to be a protector. It is your job to be a provider. You must be a strong man to do that. You are a strong man. You need to keep being a strong man. I have no problem with affirmations. You have to tell young girls, yes, you're beautiful. I tell my nieces all the time. I have one niece who, she is obsessed with being pretty. She wants to be pretty. She loves being pretty. She loves wearing makeup. And I tell her all the time, I tell her, you are beautiful without makeup. You don't need makeup. I tell my wife, you don't need makeup. You're beautiful without it. I tell women, you don't need makeup. You look fine without makeup. Okay? Women, makeup is for other women. Men don't care. I tell my nieces, you don't need to buy that stuff to be pretty. Okay? That stuff doesn't make you pretty. If you have an evil woman that puts on 5 pounds of makeup and she looks gorgeous, but she's evil, she's not pretty. She's evil. I try to explain this to my nieces. You don't need this stuff. You don't need makeup to be pretty. Be a good person. Do your best. You already are pretty. You're fine. Of course, I believe in affirmations, right? At the same time, I believe if a kid's doing something stupid, you should tell them, hey, that's fucking stupid. You're going to get hurt. Stop doing that. Like, I believe in both ends just being, sometimes you have to be like, hey, you don't need makeup. You look fine. Sometimes you have to be like, hey, that's a stupid fucking thing to do, and you're going to get hurt. Now, as the uncle in the room, it's my job to say, hey, that's a stupid fucking thing to do, and you're going to get hurt. Here's how you do it without breaking your arm. That's what uncles are for. We are, half dad, half big brother. I'm going to encourage you to do dumb shit, but I'm going to make sure you don't get hurt because I don't want to hear my brother bitch because why did you let my kids get hurt? Well, sometimes you got it. Now, with my nephews, it's a whole different story. With my nephews, if I wrestle with my nephews, if I'm tussling around with my nephews, it's affirmation, but it's, hey, don't forget, I still didn't go as hard as I could with you. Now, my nephew Truffle's a little bit different because Truffles is a really good fighter. He's now a Marine. Prior to that, he was a wrestler and a boxer. And so, with Truffles, it's different because Truffles has training. My other nephews, they're just boys being boys. So I have to remind them, I know a lot more than you think, and I could seriously put some hurt on you. I'm going easy because, you're my nephew and I love you and I don't want to hurt you. But you still did good. You got to give them that. You still did good. For not knowing nothing, you're new to it. Yeah, and I'm talking teenagers. I'm not talking we're 20 years old and wrestling around. I'm talking 14, 15, maybe 12, 13 even. Big enough that you can roughhouse a little bit, but you're not hurting them. Yeah. You should definitely be affirming, hey, you did good. I have one nephew and I always tell him, I wouldn't want to actually fight you if you were pissed off because you're strong. I would probably win, but I would seriously have to hurt you. I would probably win because I know more than that. But I would have to actually hurt. And I tell him all the time, if you fought someone your age, you're going to win that fight. You're going to win almost every time unless you get into it with someone who really knows what they're doing. Because this kid, he got that farm strength. But I digress. This article is telling kids the exact opposite. This article is telling kids, oh, you're a weak little boy? Well, you must be a girl. This article is telling kids, oh, well, you're a little bit too rough to play with the other girls? Oh, you must be a boy. I watch the children in my neighborhood play, not like a creeper. I'm just noticing as I'm out working on something, I see the kids play, and sometimes the boys want to be rough with the girls. And some of the girls roughhouse back. They don't care. Some of the girls are like, nah, go away. I don't want to roughhouse with you. I don't like to play rough because you're bigger than me and you hurt me. None of these kids think that they're other genders. Okay? All these little kids know that they're boys, they're girls. They don't think they're the opposite. They know. They know that they're boys. They know that they're girls. Some of the girls will be like, it's not fair that you want to wrestle with me because I'm a girl. I'm not good at wrestling. And it's like, you could be. If you worked at it, yeah, you could be. You could be good at wrestling. There's no reason you can't. But this article says, you're not good at wrestling. You're a boy who's not good at wrestling? Hey, you must be a girl. You must be a little girl, so go chop your wiener off. Tells these girls, oh, you're good at wrestling? Well, you must be a boy, so get rid of them boobies when you get older, you little weirdo. What the fuck kind of boy has boobies? And it's like, no, that's not what we're doing here. There are girls that can wrestle. There are girls that can fight. There are girls that can shoot. There are girls that can deadlift and beat men. Yeah, there are. It's very rare. There are. I saw something where average high school men were beating professional women's bodybuilders in deadlifts. And it's because we're built different. But I digress. That's not the conversation here. The conversation here is these articles are to brainwash people. People like Jazz Jennings' mother, who was brainwashed into saying, oh, well, my toddler, my 1-year-old son, wore a dress, not understanding what a dress was, not understanding, first of all, who buys a little boy a dress? Let's get more in depth in the question here. How did the little boy get a dress? Let's answer that question first before we get into any of that other shit. Okay? The whole thing was the mother. All right? I feel immensely bad for Jazz Jennings. And I hope the best for them. Them, him, her, whatever. I don't know. I mean, again, I mean no disrespect or ill intent towards Jazz. I don't mean to disparage Jazz in any way. I just don't know because it's not something I'm interested in. I've seen this clip of this mother and I wanted to talk about her unhinged psychopathy. The article that I read that says, oh, it's a spectrum and boys can be a little girly and it's okay. Well, maybe they're a girl. No. Boys can be a little girly and it's okay. Maybe maybe he likes flowers instead of fighting. Okay? That's fine. But you're still a boy. You're still a little boy. You can be a little boy who likes flowers instead of fighting. That's fine. I'm almost 30 years old and I hate bugs. Okay? I am a 30-year-old man. Well, I'm 28. And I hate bugs and snakes. I love outdoors. I love being in the woods. I love being in nature. But I hate bugs and snakes. Okay, I was never the bugs and snakes kind of boy. My nephew Truffles, he's the one out there in the creek, elbow deep in mud, reaching into a hole, pulling out a snake. Like, oh, look what I found. It's like, why? Leave that thing alone. What if it's venomous? What if it's gonna eat you? Like, no. Fucking snakes are weird. However, I do understand why some people like, because some snakes do look pretty fucking cool. I do have to admit. They're cool. I respect them. You stay over there. I'm gonna stay over here. Leave me the fuck alone. At no point have I ever thought, I don't like snakes, so I must be a girl. At no point did I ever think, I don't like spiders, so I must be a girl. Never once was I like, yeah, I don't like bugs, so I must be a girl. I was just like, I don't know. I just don't like bugs. I'm just going to not mess with bugs. You know, I'm not the kind of person to go out and, you know, some kids will see something dead and poke it with a stick. It's not me. I'm more worried about respecting the animal and letting it, that's its final resting place. I'm going to leave it there. You know, I'm not someone who's going to sit there and be like, oh, I must be a girl because I don't want to poke dead animals with a stick and catch snakes. I never grew up catching snakes. I never really liked snakes. My other brother's terrified of snakes also, which makes me wonder if there was something in like our family lineage that got passed down. It's interesting because it's the men on my dad's side of the family do not like snakes. Don't know why. My dad's kind of like, whatever, they're there. I'm just going to leave them alone. I'm not going to like pick them up and mess with them or nothing. My other brother is like, oh my God, no, I'm not touching a snake. If that thing comes near me, I'm going to kill it. And I'm kind of like, if it comes near me, I'll deal with it. If it just like stays over there, I'm going to leave it alone. My brother accidentally chopped the head off of a snake one time with a weed whacker. He was weed whacking around his little garden in the backyard, and this little snake popped its head up as he was coming through with weed whacker and just fucking right off with its head. It was funny. It was real funny because then he had to pick up the snake that he's terrified of because otherwise the dogs would have ate the snake. And he was like, I don't want the dogs to eat the snake because I don't know if the dogs can eat the snake. I don't know if they'll get sick from eating it or something. I don't know what kind of snake it is. It was hilarious. It was the best day of my life. He got like a shovel and a bucket and like scooped it. It was hilarious. It was funny as fuck. That was a good day. It was a good day watching him in terror over a fucking little, and it was just like a little garden snake. It was like, it wasn't going to hurt him. It was hilarious. But anyway, I digress. Back to the topic at hand. Let's finish up our final two topics here. So we have, for our final two bullet points here are the division of the the division of the empire, which we kind of touched on with people in red states moving to more red states, people in blue states moving to more blue states. Really separating out the purple. There are no more purple states anymore. And the military overextension. Now, the military overextension is the one I really want to touch on. The division of the empire, yeah, kind of a little bit, kind of close to that. Not like, it's not happening really badly, but it is kind of happening a little bit. There's not a whole lot to talk about there. It's something that, yeah, okay, it's happening a little bit, but it's not a concern yet. However, this military overextension, this is one that I want to talk about. Um, so basically, Rome was stretched too thin. The Roman army ended up relying on mercenaries, and the mercenaries weren't necessarily always loyal. We're not there yet, but what I have is, so this is 2024, this was Biden, and we have a couple incidents under Biden, nothing too big. And then we get to 2025, where we have March 2025, June 2025, Operation Southern Spear, United States military and surveillance campaign aimed at detecting, disrupting, and degrading transitional criminal and illicit maritime networks. This is the drug boats. Let me turn that. Is that better? Yeah. Operation Hawkeye was a retaliatory military action strike against the Islamic State following the December 2025 Palmyra attack. 2026 Operation Absolute Resolve was January 2026. The United States launched airstrikes on Venezuela. 2026 Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion. These are the engagements with Iran, I believe. We have the United States and Israel launched a large-scale joint military operation against Iran, codenamed Epic Fury by the U.S. and Roaring Lion by Israel. So we're seeing, in a condensed amount of time, we're seeing a lot of action under the Trump administration. Is it stretching us too thin? No, not by any means. Is it a catalyst for something that could stretch us thin? Yeah. Yeah. So do I think we're falling? No, not yet. Do I think we're in decline? Yes, I do. I think we are declining slightly. I don't think we're falling. I think the slippery slope's a long way away. However, we're starting to walk downhill. We haven't hit the slippery slope yet. Maybe we're on the slippery slope, but it's been sunny for a couple months, and the slippery slope is nice and dry. One good rainstorm, yeah, we might be on the slippery slope. You never know. But I wanted to make this video, and I wanted to talk about all these kind of bullet points. You know, I didn't have like a huge structured idea for this video. I just kind of wanted to touch on some of these thoughts I had about what's going on, why is it going on, and what are the causes of these things. And what I've come up with is we do have an immense amount of corruption. I think that's pretty easy to see. I do think we need some sort of reform. I think we need to fix it. I don't know if Trump's the answer. MAGA has been tearing itself apart. Trump is saying all kinds of people are not MAGA, that were MAGA, and I think that we are in a slippery slope as far as that goes. The Democrat Party is kicking people out for not being left-wing enough, whereas the right is kicking people out for not being MAGA enough. And not necessarily saying you're not a Republican anymore, just you're not in our good graces. The same thing with the Democrats. You're not necessarily not a Democrat, but you're not our friend. You're not in our good graces. And so I'm seeing all these events unfolding, and I'm just wondering, how much time until it just falls apart? How much time until China says, all right, we're going to strike now because we can, and America is going to be subservient to us now? How much time before China says we can do whatever we want because there's no cohesion in the United States? Nobody can agree on anything. It's things like this that I've been wondering about. And I just wanted to talk about this for a little bit and kind of give my thoughts on where we're at. Is this the fall of the empire? No, I don't think so. I think we can still recover from this. We can still fix it. We can still, make America great again. And with that being said, I would fall into the not MAGA because I've criticized Trump on some things. I don't think we should be going to war. I don't think we should be starting wars. That being said, having a brother who joined the military, and no, he never deployed overseas, but he saw the effects that war had on people. He still has been in firefights as a police officer in the Air Force. Security forces is the was his job title. Um, but most people don't know what that is, so it's easier to just say he was a police officer in the Air Force. If you know what security forces is, then you know. He was on personal protection details. He was on. I don't know how much of that I can get into. I don't know if there's like NDAs on that stuff, but he did personal protection details. He did essentially SWAT, and so yeah, he's been in firefights. He's firsthand seen the effects of post traumatic stress on other people. He has gone through the effects of post traumatic stress. He's better now, but you still see it. You still see him go back to Vietnam from time to time. He wasn't in Vietnam. I'm just being silly. Being silly. He was in during the global war on terror. He harbors a lot of resentment because every time he got to bid for deployment, the Marines would get the deployment. So he really doesn't like the jarheads. I'm kidding. It's one of those I'm mad that you got to deploy, but I'm glad you're on my side kind of things. Because like, man, those retards know how to fight. Okay, that should be the Marine Corps motto. Join the Marines. Those retards know how to fight. Honestly, I would probably just go do it. Yeah, you know what? You win. You got me. I'm coming. I fully endorse. But yeah, it's something that I lost my train of thought. I lost where I was going with that. But seeing people go through those kind of things, you kind of understand. And having gone through something traumatic myself, it was a dog attack. It really fucked me up. Um, I can now see those signs of PTSD. And, you know, we have a bad system. We don't take care of our warfighters. We have a lot of political corruption. There's a lot of corruption in the VA. My brother's information was lost. Seen as DD 214s. I know they exist. They just lost it. They just lost his paperwork, and now he's no longer eligible for his own benefits. But I digress. That's not what this was about. I wanted to talk about the possible fall of America. Do I think it's coming? No, not yet. But anyway, that's all I got. I'll see you all in the next one.